Hey guys, Chop here. Remember this picture of Celestia? It's from the manga they released years ago now, and it's basically all we have of what Celestia actually looks like. For the most part, it's been theorised as a panopticon, which is a kind of prison, but it's not really made that much sense for basically the entire time this theory has existed. There's few alternatives, and certainly no very popular ones, until now. See, I took a look at it again for a different theory that I'm also working on simultaneously to this one, and started to notice a lot that connected to theories I've made previously that allow me to conjure up a lot about this image. The first is this weird plant-like entity at the apex of the image. It looks like some kind of tree root, perhaps like the roots of Irmin? But that can't make sense because Celestia is in the sky, so how would the roots of the world tree be in the sky? Well, you may recall the vast number of theories about Teyvat being upside down, or inside out, basically just the inverse of what it should be. This is supported in numerous ways, like the spiral abyss going up when you're inside, despite the fact that it's going deeper underground, or the city underneath the chasm also being upside down, almost as if it was flipped. There's a lot to this theory that backs it up, and I fully believe in it, but you can always find more videos regarding the topic if you're not yet convinced. However, for the sake of me not wasting your time, I'm going to move on here. The idea that Irmin also follows suit with this upside-down Teyvat notion is something I considered because of the blossoms of wealth and blossoms of revelation. They are on the surface, coming out of the ground, which is odd considering that flowers blossom on the branches. So what's actually going on here? Perhaps the blossoms and branches of Irmin are at the surface, with the roots being up in the sky and down beneath the ground. So, if this is true, then why is this building in Celestia constructed around this root, with it being at its centre? For that, you need to look into Norse mythology, whereby there are three candidates for what's beneath the roots. Well, it's kind of one candidate, but there are three different versions of it. There are three wells told in the ancient stories that sit beneath a root of the world tree, Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil, by the way, is what Irmin is based on, the world tree that connects everything together. There are tales too, in particular regarding King Irmin of Khaenri'ah in Genshin Impact, that directly take from Old Norse material to back up this claim. So, what are these wells? The three wells are Mimirbrunna, Uttabrunna, and finally Vegelmir. Mimirbrunna is the well of Mimir, which is situated in the realm Jotunheimr. You know how Odin only has one eye? Yeah, that's because he sacrificed his eye to put it into Mimirbrunna to gain wisdom. That is one of three ways that he becomes as wise as he is, another one of them being he hung himself in a sacrifice to himself to access the knowledge of the runes. Funnily enough, his Genshin equivalent, King Irmin, actually does the exact same thing. The hanging himself for runic wisdom, that is, not the eye thing. Although, actually, he does only have one eye. So where is that other eye? Perhaps it is the same story as the Nordic tales. King Irmin very well may have sacrificed his eye in Mimirbrunna. It is for this reason that I majorly believe Mimirbrunna to instead be located in Khaenri'ah. And forwarding this idea a little further, that would relate Khaenri'ah to Jotunheimr, and therefore the Khaenri'ans themselves would be the Jotun or Etin that inhabit that realm. The Jotun are famous for their great war against the Aesir gods, in which nobody is victorious in Ragnarokr, and almost everyone and everything dies. The Jotun kill gods, and the gods kill Jotun. It kind of matches up to the Genshin equivalent when you consider that the gods did wage war against Khaenri'ah. It really does seem as though they are based on them. And one final evidence could be the namesake of Khaenri'ah, being the Arabic meaning of wind betrayers or traitors. It's not too obvious why this name exists, especially the Arabic origin being a massive juxtaposition to the Old Norse and some Germanic connotations to Khaenri'ah, but I could reason that the wind is in reference to Celestia being skybound, much like the wind, and therefore the Khaenri'ans that did battle against Celestia in some form would be wind betrayers. So that's my evidence for Mimirbrunna being the well in Khaenri'ah, but what about the other two? Let's look at Vegelmir, which is probably the least mentioned well of the three. What we do know, however, is that it's located inside Niflheim, the primordial realm of mist. All of creation originated because of Ymir, which was the first giant and first being in general to exist, who came to be from Niflheim's ice meeting Muspelheim's fire. It is essentially a realm of nothing, but was the start of everything. There are two other notes of import here to recognise about this particular well. The first is that the dragon Nidhogr gnaws at its roots, alongside many snakes. And the second being that the heavenly stag Khaenri'ah has some unspecified liquid that drops from its horns, although would more appropriately be anthers, and yes I am arguing with the pre-13th century Skald, into the well Hvagelmir. Okay, so I currently cannot see any connection to a stag or horns in this context in Genshin, so I'll be ignoring the Poetic Edda's account of the well and instead focus on Snorri's Prose Edda account, which is to say that I'm going to connect the well to Genshin's Nidhogr, snakes, and Niflheim. I've already made a theory about Nidhogr and I keep seeing connections to its existence in the game so frequently that I am dead set on it one day being the most insane boss fight we ever get. I mean, imagine fighting an abyssal dragon in a misty spring. Okay, I guess it's kind of already being done, but the abyss part sounds cool, okay? Nevertheless, my Dainsleif theory goes into greater detail on it, but to summarise, Nibelung, the Dragon King, is based on Nidhogr, and he helped King Irmin to use forbidden knowledge when they dug beyond Tevat's borders and into the abyss. This desolate, cold, dark and misty realm beneath Tevat is Niflheim. I already predicted Nibelung, who I'm suggesting being based on Nidhogr, to be in this space beneath Khaenri'ah, or above it, depending on how this upside down theory works out. Regardless, it's a theory I've already made, now with more evidence because of the well Hvagelmir also being based there and related to the dragon. Finally, the snakes that are said to be there can already be connotated to Khaenri'ah, although I'm not particularly sure exactly how the two could connect. See, Dainsleif has what we currently know to be a snake ring, and his royal guards are also known as the Black Serpent Knights, both having snake connotations, quite clearly. I'm therefore led to consider that Dainsleif has something to do with the Hvagelmir well, or maybe just Nibelung, but I'm not exactly sure how. Perhaps he drew some power from the well, similar to Irmin and Mimir's Bruna, to not be monstified by the curse. Or instead he may have gotten the snake ring from Nibelung himself, who very possibly has some imagery of a snake if we connect him to the Gnostic hymn serpent coiling itself around the Genesis Pearl. Basically, all of this to say that Hvagelmir is possibly the abyss outside of Tevat. Well, looks like there's only one option left. Urthabrunir. Does this actually work though? Well, it's located amongst the Aesir, beneath a root of Yggdrasil. The Aesir gods hold court, that is, to be the centre of attention amidst an encircling crowd, at this very well. There is a grand hall near it, and from the well spawn 3 Norns, the shapers of human fate. Now, where in Genshin do we see a grand hall in which gods may hold court beneath a tree root at a well that relates to fate? I wonder. It's the picture of Celestia. If we are to believe that Khaenri'ah is Jotunheim, who do battle with the Aesir gods, which is Celestia in this case, then Celestia would be Asgarth, the home of the Aesir gods. This also kind of works out with the idea of fate being woven by Celestia as of the present, perhaps in this very room that we see in the manga. The Norns are those that control fate in Norse mythology, and they are at this well, so they may also be at this well in this very picture, weaving fate as we know it into that. I may also note that the well turns everything that touches it into pure white. And what do we see in this Celestia picture? There's clearly a lot of sunlight, but what's this for? It looks to be pure white, and it could be a flooring, or the water from the well of Urthabrunir. The final point here is that there are 2 swans that are said to be at this well, which I think is going to be nothing, but it's still worth connecting it to the Schwanenritter. This is German for Swan Knight. It's basically the only swans in Genshin, unless you think that the Mondstadt guard called Swan is from the well that spawns the fates, but realistically, the Schwanenritter is based on Wagner's Lohengrin opera, given the Hoyoverse's obsession with his work, so I don't think that these swans actually have any relation in the game. Okay, so if Mimir's Bruna is a well in Khaenri'ah that has King Irmin's eye in it, Hvagelmir is a well in the abyss beneath Khaenri'ah with Nibelung in it and is where King Irmin discovered forbidden knowledge, and finally Urthabrunir is the well we see in the image of Celestia surrounded by the Grand Hall in which courts are held that the old Nordic texts speak of, then what does it all actually mean for Genshin Impact? I think the best route to go down here is to expand upon the well in Celestia. It is the well that spawns the Norns that control fate, who have already been thought of by most of the theorist community as the Moirai, the weavers of fate in Greek mythology. This is of course because of the loom of fate that we have heard of many times by the likes of Dainsleif and Clothar in contexts such as the Travail trailer for example, that leads us to the notion that the loom of fate is the endgame of the Traveller in Dainsleif. Using the loom of fate they can rewrite fate itself to save Teyvat. But what is this loom? Well, from the Caribert quest we are told by Clothar Albrecht that his Hilichurl son, Caribert, became the loom of fate in a weird twisted ascension? It's not really clear, he just took his mask off and apparently became the loom of fate. But where did he actually go? He became this loom and in that state Albrecht informs us that he can now weave his own fate. Well, we know Vanessa ascended and ended up in this place in Celestia, which in this theory at least is the well that fate comes from, or at least has some major connection to it. So major in fact, that I'm going to have a mini crazy theory here in saying that this room that Vanessa ascended to in the manga is the loom of fate. It's the well that the Norns come from, which are heavily theorized in Genshin, and it seems to be here that fate originates. Almost. The game has many different themes, but perhaps its biggest one is that of fate and destiny. It's a classic writing technique to begin your story with a foreshadowing to its conclusion, and this manga is the beginning of the game. It's the prelude. So it would make sense for them to end the prelude, i.e. this manga, with the loom of fate, considering that it's the finale of the game as well. It's an amazing foreshadowing and a very widely used technique, but I obviously can't really use storytelling methods to predict the future of the game, so that part is more so just a possible idea, rather than a theory, given how little it can be backed up in comparison to the wider notion that I've explored in this video. It does, however, suggest, if true, that Caribert ascended to this loom of fate likewise to Vanessa, which would mean that it's not just some Norns that control fate, but rather a collective effort of the people. The vision wielders that ascended to Celestia helped to weave fate by ascending to this well, but then why would Caribert have been able to as well? Well, we've already reached the far-fetched part of the theory, so we might as well go all the way now. We've been told that King Irmin found power from outside Teyvat, and this theory has already suggested that one of the wells, the one that Nibelung is guarding, is outside of Teyvat, in the Abyss. So if King Irmin really did interact with Nibelung and go into the Abyss for his power, was it perhaps this well? If he gained the wisdom that the well in Khaenri'ah granted him, it's not crazy to consider that he endeavoured to venture into the Abyss for more power from these wells, but this time is power from outside the world. This well, the Vergelmir, perhaps granted Khaenri'ahns the ability to ascend, which wasn't possible before because they were never granted visions. They had no Archon ruling them. If the well Utherbrunner is where people ascend to in Teyvat, then why would another well, also connected to Irminsul, not have the ability to do something at least similar? I mean, even the name of the world tree that the well is connected to has Irmin in it. But then what's with the immortality curse? And the Hilichurl curse? Well, remember the whole Odin sacrificing his eye into Mimir's well thing? Perhaps a sacrifice is required to gain the power of the well. And maybe that sacrifice was the humanity that Khaenri'ahns hold ever so dearly. The well sacrificed Khaenri'ahns' greatest pride, which should suggest that Irmin's greatest pride is his vision. Almost as if he's a visionary, quite similar to a fellow Khaenri'ahn, Vedrfolnir. Well, we don't know for sure if Vedrfolnir is Khaenri'ahn, but given the name origin also being Nordic, I would be shocked if they weren't. So if King Irmin granted his people the ability to ascend through a different well in the Abyss, and the well sacrificed the humanity of these people in exchange, then where does the immortality come from? It could be the divine punishment sent by Celestia onto the Hilichurls so that they can never die and ascend, with Caribert being the only one we know of to free himself from that curse. It does all make some sense, although this is the part of the theory that's probably a little too crazy for me, given my long-standing idea that Khaenri'ahns are the ones responsible for their own immortality curse. So it could instead be that Irmin used the well to grant his people immortality and ascension perhaps, which frees Celestia from all guilt against Khaenri'ah, although that's risky to say as well given how much it's stated that Celestia is at fault. It is absolutely overstated though, especially in the perspectives of the Khaenri'ahs, which leads me to believe that it's not all Celestia's fault, just for some drama, some spice, some tea to spill, you know? Anyway, that last segment really is a much more wild and baseless theory, just some ideas to throw around. The rest of it though, especially the wells and the connections, I genuinely do think is the best idea that there's been for what this picture actually tells us. There's just too much wrong with it being a prison, especially when you consider that Vanessa just freely went about her business as a falcon. If she was imprisoned, how would that have occurred? I don't buy into that theory personally, and so this is my current hypothesis. The image is Urtzabruna and quite possibly, at a bit of a reach, the Loom of Fate itself. So, what do you guys think of the theory? I think it's an interesting new take, at least as far as I'm aware, on this highly theorized picture in Genshin Impact's manga. Tell me any thoughts you have or theories and I'll be sure to reply to everyone, as long as it's not in like 20 years and I've forgotten that I ever did YouTube. I'm going to be making more videos again, so keep up to date and just nag at me in my streams that I do on this channel if I'm being slow uploading. I'll do it if you shout at me enough. Anyway, that's all for this video and I'll see you in the next one. Chop out. Bye.